Hello, everyone. I'm Sam Eckmann of Gold Derby, and with me is the incredibly talented members of the I May Destroy You editing team, Amy Hounsell, Christian Sandino-Taylor, John Dwelly, and Lindsey Woodward. And you all have worked on quite a show here. And it's common in TV to have multiple editors like this working across different episodes. You all handle various episodes. When that's the case, when there are multiple people from episode to episode, how do you all work together to sort of ensure that there's a unified tone and a unified feeling to the series?
Well, I think we were lucky on this show because we had Michaela, who was running in and out of all of our rooms, which was amazing to have that. And we all were doing the same thing. We were sharing scenes with each other and ideas and kind of music ideas, graphics, anything like that. So I think that was a big kind of point of the show.
We all joined at different stages as well, which was quite interesting. So Lindsey was the first to join, then myself, then shortly afterwards Christian, and then Mike and Guy, who aren't with us at the moment, and then Amy joined at the end. So, I mean, Amy, how did you find kind of coming in at the end with regards to keeping up with the tone?
Yeah, so obviously coming in last, I think episodes 1 and 2 had locked, and then I got to kind of binge watch the whole series to kind of catch up. And yeah, it was just a series that already in that form was just super exciting, and the editing felt really distinct and fresh, and just, yeah, it was nice to have seen that, to kind of implement that within episode 9 and carry that on. You know, it's got that quite unconventional side of it, which I really enjoyed. You know, there's the use of score, for example. You know, there isn't any. It's all kind of commercial led, and that's a really interesting thing in itself. You're not led in any particular way. So I felt that was a really useful exercise to inspire me with my own episode.
Yeah, Amy came in and just nailed it seamlessly. After, whereas because we all came in at different periods, and also it's a new show with a very unique, Michaela's specific take on the world. So a lot of it was conversations during the assembly period between the editors, just trying to find the show, trying to find out each scene, trying to explore it then. And then that took a second iteration when Michaela came in. And then, it's a sort of a constant job. But so you also had to, Michaela, we knew that she was overseeing it. So, it got to a certain stage where we were all editing together. The schedule was very tight, and you just trusted that it would become this thing, this coherent, homogenous thing, despite its kind of idiosyncrasies. So she was overseeing it, and of course HBO and Val, and the BBC were all very good as well. So we were, I don't know about the rest of you, but I didn't think twice about the tone being a problem with everyone else, because we all got on so well. We all talked together, and I knew Michaela was so brilliant. It was not gonna fall apart.
Well, Amy's episode that you did, the social media, is a great way to connect. The Halloween episode makes me think of one unique thing about this series, which it has a lot of dreamlike aspects to it. It dips into sort of a surrealism every once in a while, even though the show is dealing with really grounded natural elements. Like Amy, in that episode, there's that scene where Arabella sort of floats towards the camera and is being consumed with her social media world. How do you all handle aspects like that, the surreal aspects? Do you have to approach those differently than scenes that feel more natural?
I mean, with that particular scene, the brief from Michaela and Sam Miller, have fun, go crazy, do what you want, experiment, and come back and show us something cool. And yeah, you're right, there is so many kind of little abstract sequences throughout, but they're really challenging in a fun way. and you can really, you know, experiment in different ways, and that was very much encouraged throughout the show.
I think they were all very relaxed with things like that, just letting us have fun and like locking ourselves away for a few days and just experimenting and seeing what kind of ideas we came up with. And you know, and then I'd run into like either Christian's room or John's. Amy, this was just a little before you'd started, I think. Otherwise, I'd have come into your room as well. But we were constantly just, doing that and just playing around. And we had all this freedom, which was, it was so much fun.
Huge amount of freedom. Yeah, it was amazing.
Yeah. Because, and also like it was, the script was very, the script was descriptive in an interesting way. It wasn't like sort of, it wasn't prescriptive. It wasn't telling you exactly what to do. Like I had in episode 1, there was the way that there's a very hard cut after Arabella's been drugged to later on in the night. And the description in the script was almost, it was almost like a first person description of that feeling. It was confusing. It said something like she reaches up for the handle, it's not there typing. It was something like that. And you were like, you actually had to read it a few times to work out what was going on just on the page. And so there are lots of things like that where, there was loads of creative room for us to express ourselves and find an analog, you know, with the footage.
That's a good example. There's often kind of two timelines happening in this show because it flashes back considerably to the moment in the night where Arabella is assaulted. How do you use that material and find the right timing for it? Because it feels like it has to sort of come in at the right length and time in order to be shocking or in order to disorient. How long does that take you to sort of figure out?
Isn't it? I don't know about the rest of the guys, but like, I think that on this show, the first thing was like a lot of the time was discussing discussing is what the specific effect would be. Because as you said, Sam, like there's lots of different ideas. You know, there's flashbacks which are shocking or basically her re-experiencing trauma. There are flashbacks which are memories. There are flashbacks which are, you know, her re-piecing together her experience of something in a positive way. So once you have the idea of it, what is it literally supposed to be doing? Because these, you know, the flashbacks have different ideas to it. Then it's the luck of the edit, isn't it? Sometimes you hit it like that. Sometimes it's it's days like any edit. From my experiences, you know.
I think Christian sort of quickly established that as well, right at the very top of episode 1, where she's in the taxi and there's the flashback to her like time in Italy, the holiday that she's just had. I think very quickly established that this was going to be a show that was going to sort of have sort of little non-linear sort of sprinkles throughout it. So I think that was a really clever way of sort of introducing the sort of the style straight away. I think something Christian did brilliantly. The opening shot you could of the entire series, you could argue that the entire series is a sort of a memoir, if you like.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. We put that. There's a shot of we sort of put that. Michaela and I put that just before we locked episode 1. Which is a shot of all of the Arabella's post-it notes on her wall, and you know we knew that it was a kind of promise of the show. You wouldn't understand it. There's no way you'd understand it. But if in retrospect and on the second viewing, you'd understand that this show is both Arabella taking this trauma and turning it into art, and Michaela doing that. But yeah, it was really, I mean, as soon as you start playing with those things, as we do with music, you realize that the show could hold all of these different techniques, styles, moods, go from, you know, comedy to something horrific in a second. And audiences are so, I think, are really smart. So it's fine. They can take anything you throw at them. As long as you establish, I suppose you're right, John. I suppose we established fairly early that we're going to do all of these things, and we're going to change tone. We're going to use flashbacks, flash forwards. We're going to challenge you, and then you know that you can take it.
Yeah. John, you sort of in that vein have kind of the opposite of the flashback when you have to have a reveal at the end, kind of with ego death in the finale. How do you build things in a way so that it feels, because every time, like in the finale, she cycles through a different scenario and you realize, oh God, that's not it. And then you go through another one and you're still hooked, and oh God, that's not it. So how do you make sure that that lands each time?
I made a little chart so I could have a visual representation of how the episode played out. So I knew where I was at each point, sort of in the episode. So it always made sense to me. I think the thing that's kind of quite nice about episode 12 is it doesn't reveal itself to be something different until that first sort of reversal, that first moment where sort of Arabella's back in the garden. So that was also very deliberate. They were very keen that the notes sort of revolved around the fact that the first scenario they didn't want it to feel sort of as though it wasn't real until they wanted the audience to discover that. So there's a moment where David leaves ego death, and Arabella and Theo and Terry are ahead of him. And it's at that moment, because you'd be thinking, well, this doesn't make sense sort of geographically, how they managed to sort of leave before him and appear in space. That was the moment where it's kind of supposed to be a reveal that something's a little bit askew. And I think that's where the music starts coming in, and that's where it's quite clearly something's very, very, very odd. And obviously it ends with Arabella sort of stuffing his body under a bed, at which point I think the audience might be going, okay, something's a bit out of sorts. But it was with regards to those scenes in the garden between Ben and Arabella, I was very careful that they're almost identical. They're shorter, but they are always kind of the same takes, and also the little sort of moments in between, because Christian established that at the end of episode 11. And in fact, I got Christian to send me the end of episode 11 so I could sort of almost do like a little recap of it and then make it sort of feel continuous. So it was just, I just had to be very, very on the ball all the time.
Well, speaking of takes, what I'm always interested in with editors is that you all really have the power to sort of shape a performance when you think about it, because if actors are giving you different takes, your kind of choices in the editing room can affect their trajectory and affect what layers are there. And as some of you have mentioned, so much of the show is about really putting you into the character's experience and really putting almost in a first-person experience from them. So I would love if you could just talk about, like, what is that process for you of kind of selecting different takes from the actors?
So this one's particularly strange for me because you're working with the person that's on screen next to you. It's a little bit surreal, but you get used to it. And Michaela was very good at detaching herself and referring to Arabella, and didn't face her at all. But yeah, I guess it's all about how it makes you feel, which has got more emotional impact. And then as it sits in the cut, you can change its shape as you go, really. So that's always been for me, but it's so hard. Sometimes it's really, really tricky.
Yeah, when they're as good as some of these actors are, yeah, it's your sport for choice. They're not kind of, I don't know. I mean, certainly like someone like Michaela, for me, I guess guys almost feel the same. Like she's not like warming up to a perfect take. She's just on it straight away. So you just have
phenomenal.
Yeah, you just have great choices, and you leave loads of good stuff on the floor because there's other good stuff.
The entire cast was absolutely amazing.
Yeah,
yeah,
brilliant, aren't they? And then I mean, sorry.
I was just going to say with Michaela as well, she wasn't precious about losing scenes or anything like that. Even though she's in them, it wasn't kind of like, well, I'm amazing in this scene or anything like that. It was like she's willing to, she's ruthless as well. She's like, yeah, we don't need it. It's fine. you know, and that was actually amazing to see her do, and her thought process to suddenly be like, yeah, we don't need that bit anymore. And
yeah, she knows what's important, doesn't she? Like, there's no vanity as a writer or an actor. She's just, oh yeah, doesn't work, get rid of it. Maybe we don't need it, you know. Which
she was able to keep her roles separate as well. So there was always sort of, you know, there was director Michaela, writer Michaela, actor Michaela. There was never any sort of crossover where one would interfere with the other.
Yeah. But it's also funny, like, I don't know about the rest of the guys, but like, say with Kwame, with his performance, I didn't see its power until I saw the show finished, because it was so muted is the wrong word. It was so subtle, and what he was playing is someone who's sort of withdrawn, is a fairly withdrawn character, and I didn't realise its power watching the dailies, cutting the scenes, until I saw the arc of the whole series and saw how brilliant what he was doing was brilliant. You know, I was worried that it was too small or too subtle, but yeah, standing back and then watching the whole thing, I was amazed by it. You know.
Well, before I let you all go, I would love each of you to kind of speak on, an editor once had described your craft to me as sort of invisible work, because there's not a tangible thing like an actor or a costume or a set there. You are sort of putting the story together. And when I think the general public often hears editing, they think of action scene, you know, like a scene with lots of cuts, which obviously there is a lot more to it. So I'm just wondering, for you all, what do you feel like is the most kind of important aspect, an important part of your work that people maybe don't see or consider?
Good question. Yeah. I need a minute to think about it.
Pop quiz.
I think I ask myself that question every day.
What do I do?
I hope this is the bit of the interview where the gap gets edited down, so we all instantly came up with an answer.
Yes. I'll ask you all to edit this after.
If we think in freeze frame, then we can just, it'll be seamless. I would say, like, there's loads of things, but I would say you really have to have a feeling or an understanding of storytelling. Like, a lot of that stuff, I realise, you know, I've learned loads from sitting with brilliant directors in rooms and basically asking them a million questions about how to tell stories, like an engine, you know, asking a mechanic about how a car works. Like brilliant directors and writers know how story works, like a mechanic knows how a car works. And I think when you start, for me, I knew I must have had a feeling for it. You know, I think we've all got an inbuilt story feeling, because stories are so important to us as humans. But I think it's like, if you have a good sense of storytelling, that's a brilliant place to start from. And even if it's just a sense or a feeling, you know, like when you have assistants and you give them a scene to cut, you can really tell really quickly if they have that sense. And it's partly rhythm, it's partly fit, it's all the other things. But I think that's a big core element, is your sense of a story.
I remember, sorry, Amy.
No, I was just saying I couldn't agree more.
I was going to say, I remember...
You're not getting out of it that easily, Amy.
I remember asking a famous editor what his process was, and his reply, rather frustratingly at the time, was, "You just make it good, don't you?" And I was like, "Okay." And I guess what he was sort of saying was that I think as you as an editor progress, what you think is good develops and improves and gets better. And if you're a decent editor, I think you'll know when something is good, and it will it will only get better as you sort of progress. I think, and I complete what Christian said as well. I think there's an intuition, but an intuition that again sort of develops with experience, and also just talking to other sort of filmmakers and editors, and just getting other people's opinions always helps.
I also think that this, sorry, Amy.
On everyone, please carry on.
I was just going to say, with I May Destroy You, I don't know about you guys, but it really pushed me out of my comfort zone, because we were allowed to just, you know, be choppy and experimental, and you kind of just go, can I get 30 seconds out of this scene by just chopping this and doing that? And actually you'd sit back and be like, yeah, it works. Like, why not? And I know that I crossed the line sometimes, and I did weird jump cuts, but actually it was great. And that it was one of those shows where you did have that freedom, and it worked. And I actually loved that it pushed me out of my comfort zone. I don't know about you guys, but
one of the notes I got for episode 12 was to make the 3 different scenarios distinct. So, which is quite a challenge. So it was very much deliberately the first sort of scenario is supposed to be sort of traditionally cut. The second one is far more sort of choppy, and there's overlapping dialogue, and there's moments where people speak and you don't see them speaking, and it's kind of deliberately more sort of in your face. And then the third scenario is supposed to be more, I guess, dreamlike. So everything was sort of slightly longer takes, and it was a bit more sort of floaty. But it was, I mean, that's to be asked to sort of actively try and sort of have a different editing style was incredibly challenging.
Yeah, you're kind of going against your instinct probably for a lot of that. I do think editing is like just an egoless profession, and we're actually a really lovely community, I think, and we're very supportive to each other. And a lot of it is just your gut. And at the beginning of most jobs, I feel like an imposter, and where's the talent gone? Do I have the skills? And it just happens. It forms. It might be an awful first assembly, but it just, crafts into something, and it's so fun, and I love it. You just have to have that passion and drive, and yes, absolutely, natural storytelling ability. Doesn't matter how beautiful those shots are if they're not pushing the story forward. And you just learn more and more on each job. You just soak more things up, and you have to be open to not being too precious, being collaborative and open, taking notes, because it's always better. 2 heads are always better than 1. That's what I would say.
Well, I think that's a good place to end it. In this case, 4 heads are better than 1. Everyone who's watching, thank you for sitting down. Subscribe to Gold Derby to keep up to date with us throughout the season. And Amy, Christian, John, Lindsey, thank you so much for talking with me.